Hey guys, and welcome back to another Warframe video. Apologies in advance. I do have a bit of a dry and raspy voice right now. I've got a cold, but I'm just trying to push through that right now because I want to get this video uploaded. And yeah, the Eclipse nerf has now been with us for long enough, and I've been tinkering with this build for long enough to the point where I am now happy with it. So I wanted to show you guys. This is not the Eidolon Guide 2024 or Ultimate Eidolon Guide 2024. This is just my endgame build that I'm going over and how I have tweaked it post the Eclipse nerf. So for those of you who don't know, Eclipse, the damage buff on this has dropped from I think about 250 or 300% base multiplicative down to 30% base multiplicative, which is exactly the same as raw. But I'm not going to get into a debate about that now. We're just going to run through the build and explain kind of where the damage is coming from now. So without further ado, yeah, let's get into it. You can probably already tell my Archon shards have changed since my last build. I've now got 3 purple on, Tau Forged, and 2 crimsons on. So the purple, or the violets rather, are providing us with additional electric damage, as well as plus 15% additional electric damage per crimson or violet on here, which obviously, as you can see, is all of them. So an additional 4 times 15% for each of these purples. So we're actually getting an additional 315% or so electric damage off of our shard setup now onto our primary weapon, which is basically where the bulk of the additional damage is coming from. On our Volt Prime right here, we also have Holster Ramp and Vigorous Swap, which would apply before that electric damage is added. So we're actually increasing the amount of electric damage we're going to get from those violet shards by utilizing mods like this, which is quite nice. And then our Arcane setup has changed slightly. I've taken off Energize, I've put on Arcane Precision, which is going to increase the damage on our secondary weapon. We're still using the Vermisplicer, which we're going to be using to headshot the Eidolons with at the end of each fight. I've also got Blind Rage on instead of Transient Fortitude, and I've got Primed Flow and Preparation to keep our energy up nice and high at the start so that I don't have to use as many energy pads. So the reason I've got Blind Rage on, where I had Transient Fortitude on before, is because obviously, yeah, now that I've had to take off Energize, I want to put on something that's going to give me a lot of energy at the start, but by putting Primed Flow on, I have to take off Prime Continuity realistically, so yeah. That's what I've done. And then elsewhere on the build, yeah, it's still a 3 Umbral mod build, so it's very expensive. But if you wanted to, you could take off Umbral Fiber. You would still have enough damage, enough strength to one-shot the limbs. But you might find yourself dying a bit more frequently, or going down, you know, whatever. And you can actually, yeah, like I said, one-shot the limbs without it. So maybe in its place, you know, if you wanted to put something like let's see, Natural Talent for some extra ability casting, then you certainly could do, but you would just be a bit more squishy, and you could also drop this down to a 1 Umbral Former build that way as well. On our primary, our Zenith, the build has changed slightly. We now have Hammer Shot on here. Our Riven mod has stayed exactly the same as it was last time. If you want to use the Rubico Prime, you definitely don't need a Riven mod for this, so, you know, if you're not keen on the Zenith and you don't fancy shooting stuff through the floor at long spawn, then by all means, you know, swap to the Rubico. This is just my personal preference. So, you know, we're just going to go ahead and just assume now if you're going to be using the Zenith, you need a Riven mod. There's no way around it. Twitch for -% weapon recoil and also increased accuracy when we swap over to our weapon, along with Primary Deadhead for more reduced recoil. And that's, yeah, basically all we need to know about this build. The Ido Shredder, the Vermisplicer, parts, Vermisplicer, Splat, and Gibber. If we take a look at the mods, you can see here it's basically built around high crit chance, crit multiplier. Same Riven mod as before. This is a pretty damn good Riven mod, so, you know, you do not need one that's as good as this. You can quite easily get away with any combination of crit damage, multi-shot, fire rate, crit chance, anything like that. Heat damage would do just fine. Reflex draw for reduced recoil and increased accuracy. And also Pax Charge, which means that we're never going to run out of ammo on it. And Secondary Deadhead for increased headshot multiplier and reduced weapon recoil. Our Vastilok right here, just speed mods, and now I've also put on a rank 1 Shattering Impact. The reason I've done this is because I am not great at doing melee swaps to my frame, and so when I do it, I am often likely to overstrip the Eidolon's armor. So to be extra safe, I have, yeah, reduced this down to just a 1 dot basically. I want to keep the Eidolon's armor on now because I want to make sure that I am getting the damage bonus from radiation. And in order to do that, I'm not going to be stripping as much armor in the first instance, but throughout the fight, for me at least, the Eidolon's armor is almost certainly just going to be gradually going down because I'm going to be accidentally weapon swapping and hitting the Eidolon with, you know, a melee shot when I don't mean to, and he's going to lose more armor. So that's the reason I've done that, in case you're interested in. The extra mods on here really don't make a difference. They're just for a bit of memeage, radiation damage, and sacrificial steel for some crit chance. Madurai, obviously, for, yeah, pretty much all the damage to the shields, all the damage to our amp and operator, and then I've got everything unbound still. Power transfer is where I'm going to be getting my casting speed from. So that's kind of, you know, where that amber shard was very nice before. I didn't really have to think about casting speed, but now we do. I'm going to be making use of power transfer as much as possible. On our Parazon, we've got Auto Breach, Runtime, and Untraceable. These two mods probably the most important. Sprint speed and also invisibility after hacking each lure, very nice. And Auto Breach, also quite nice if you are not keen on using ciphers, which at the moment I don't think I have any of, actually. On our Sentinel right here, we're using Wyrm Prime, mainly for just negate. We're going to remove status effects every now and then. We've also got Vacuum on for helping us to pick up energy orbs. Guardian is actually also really quite useful. It can save you a few times when it, you know, reboots your shield, so that's quite nice. And Prime Regen, obviously, our Sentinels can now come back to life, which is really, really, really good, actually. On the Vault Clock, we are running some Vigilante mods, just increases the chance of our primary weapon doing an orange crit instead of a yellow, so those are quite nice. On our Gear Wheel, like I said, I don't have any ciphers right now, but we would have ciphers, as well as our on-call crewmate running a Kuva new core to help gather up Vonvalists, and then we've got energy pads as well, and obviously our Arcwing launcher. Speaking of, on our Itzal right here, we have Hyperion Thrusters maxed out for improved flight speed, Energy Amplifier and Cold Snap are the only other really important mods on here, but if you wanted to get system reroutes for some extra efficiency, and durability as well for some extra durability, then, you know, by all means go ahead and do so. And that's basically it for our frame, guys. Let's just have a quick look at our operator over here. So still running the 177 amp. If you guys don't know what parts that includes on the 177, it's a Proper Scaffold, Certus Brace, and Replac Prism. We're then running Magus Elevate, that's going to be our primary method of regaining health during the runs, and also Magus Melt, again for a bit of memeage, not necessary to take down the shields or one-shot the limbs, but occasionally you can just blast straight through the shield and destroy the limb instantly without really having to worry about it, so it can be quite fun. And then we've also got Eternal Onslaught and Eternal Eradicate, the two staple mods for our amps, staple arcanes rather, for our amps these days. One providing additional crit chance, the other providing additional damage for the amp. So yeah, that is basically it, guys. We're just going to jump straight into a run and see how the build performs. Alright guys, so one thing that is worth noting is that the sequence of events of Eidolon hunting hasn't changed at all. So for those of you who want to see the kind of more specific detail on these runs, my previous guides actually are still valuable in that, you know, stuff like fast charging like we're doing here, lure gathering, and also amp timing as well. It's all still completely irrelevant. The only thing that has changed is our build. So what we're doing here, just activate all our abilities. Gonna go put a shield down, strip a bit of armor, fire some propers off to get the first shield down. Then we'll throw our on-call crewmate down. He is going to use the Kuva core to basically kill any Vonvalists that spawn underneath the Teralyst. Once he goes down, they'll be charging our lures, so we don't have to worry about that. For this second shield, we'll use the Vermisplicer after 2 proper shots. You're pretty much guaranteed that shield in one shot with just propers. I don't actually know the mechanics behind it. Maybe if someone could explain that, because yeah, every single time you're guaranteed it with a proper, but this one, on the other hand, you are not. So we're going to use Replac and Zenith. Like so. If you have a damage blessing, that one is also guaranteed, but yeah, for the most part, it's just that kind of second shield that is guaranteed for some reason. I'm not really sure. And right there, we were able to use Void Strike to guarantee the shield coming down in one, which is nice. We're now going to go and gather up all of our lures. And what I like to do here, although it's not strictly speaking necessary, is that I usually put down an energy pad Well, we found ourselves some Vermisplices right here, so we'll go ahead and collect those up. You can see our energy is still relatively high at this point. We should have enough to do all the pre-shielding we need. And I'm putting 2 shields down now for the headshots, just to make sure that there is enough DPS. And that is kind of the first thing you'll notice is a bit different now, is that I am placing 2 shields rather than 1, just to be safe. I have actually done this with 1 shield, just fine. But there are moments where you will miss the 1 shot, perhaps, if one of your pellets misses. It's just much safer to go with 2 shields now, I've found. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to do 3 shots. You can see his armor is still half, so it's not like completely down. But it should easily be enough, or easily low enough for us to 1-shot. So you saw that was all yellow crits that went off there, and it was still a 1-shot, which basically tells us that that is a guaranteed 1-shot now. So yeah, we're just going to keep going back and forth here until we get to the Hydrolyst. Now what I will say is that I am pretty rusty at Eidolon hunting. This was maybe my 2nd or 3rd run into a 6x3 with this build. And my Hydrolyst timings are a bit off, as you'll see. But, you know, we still do this, and I think it's a 6:59 Hydrolyst last limb, even with a completely scuffed Hydrolyst. And we'll go ahead here and gather up some extra Vermisplices. We can use our Zenith to shoot the Vermisplice that spawns directly inside him. So I've just used 2 pads here to get my energy basically back up to full, and that should allow us to get through the Hydrolyst without really having to use any pads. At most, you want to be using like 5 or 6 energy pads per Hydrolyst. That's what I found to be a fairly safe way to do it. So once again, we're going to go ahead and pre-shield. You can see the cast speed is a bit lower on this build, but you still have plenty of time to get all the shields down. Once again, going to do a few armor strip shots right here. 2 shields, just for safety. And right there, that was an early fire shot. I pretty much do that on every single limb, fire slightly early, or the proper damage isn't quite enough to strip the armor on the first one with the replac, or strip the shield, sorry, with the replac, so yeah, bit rough, but it doesn't matter. And again, second proper detonation is what took out the shield. Okay, that was a fairly clean one, although the combo wasn't completely precise. Once again, second proper detonation is what took the shield down there. Usually I would get maybe only 2 of those in a Hydrolyst run, but Yeah, this time not so great. And right here we are just going to use our Void Strike to take out the last limb. And we fired early. Classic. But yeah, it was about a 6:59, 7-minute last limb right there, even with the scuffed Hydrolyst. So, you know, that's probably close to my average beforehand anyway, and with a bit of practice, I'll easily get back to sort of, you know, 6:56, 6:55 averages, which would be quite nice. And to be honest, not using really many more pads, if any more pads, to be honest, with this build than before. So yeah, overall, I think it's a fairly sturdy build. Should be able to make up for the lack of damage now from Eclipse. Once again, we'll shoot Void Strike on the last capture shot here. Use Void Rig to keep the door open. Park lures by the door. Use Itzal's third to drag in all the loot, and then we can get out. And there we go. Alright guys, so I'm going to keep this outro short and sweet, but as you saw there, it is still very possible to one-shot all of the limbs on all of the Eidolons, and I've just tweaked my build only very slightly from what it was before. We've obviously added on those violet shards for the extra electric damage, but other than that, really nothing much has changed, and obviously the sequence of events, as I said, in terms of actually how we go about hunting the Eidolons, it hasn't changed at all. So by all means, if there's anything specific that you are interested in this video, such as the fast charging, lure gathering, amp timing, whatever, I do have videos on my channel explaining all of those things, so do go ahead and have a look at those. The Ultimate Eidolon Guide 2024 will be coming out soon, hopefully. Again, I can't put a date on it, but I do want to get it up sooner rather than later, and that will go into all builds from beginner through to end game. So do keep an eye out for that. But yeah, we'll probably just end this video here, guys. I would invite people to go down to the comments and let me know what you guys have been using, what kind of builds you've discovered. Yeah, let me know. I want to hear all of it. I want to hear what stuff's coming out. This is actually the kind of points in the game that are quite exciting when you get, maybe not the nerfs all the time, but buffs and changes to the game that require us to come up with new builds and ways of doing things. So yeah, let me know what you guys have discovered. Be really interested to see it. But otherwise, I will catch you guys in the next one. I'll see you later.